All right, we're live. It's Wednesday night. It's 8:30 p.m. It's the Panther-Lair Show. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. And I'm all by myself here. Jim Hammett is not going to hang out with us tonight. He's not going to take an hour out of his vacation to come hang out with us and talk a little Pitt sports. I can't believe he's doing this. I thought he would come around. I thought he'd have a few beers and say, yeah, I do want to hang out. That'll be a lot of fun. Alas, he decided it's not a lot of fun and decided he doesn't want to come hang out. So we're going to have to talk by ourselves here. Remember, you could be part of the conversation in that chat screen right off to your the right-hand side of the screen. You can post your comments and your questions. Anything you want to say, anything you want to ask as we talk about Pitt football, basketball, and recruiting tonight. You can put your comments in there. You can put your questions in there. I'll read as many comments as I can, as many questions as we can, within reason. Sometimes you guys get off track a little bit and go off on your tangents and argue with each other. And I just kind of fade out on that and scroll through to try and find something interesting that someone has to say. But yeah, join the conversation. If you want to make sure your comment gets read, your question gets answered, you can be a super chatter. You click the little dollar sign down at the bottom of the screen, and you can kick a couple of dollars to the podcast, support us, and we will make sure we get to your comment and question, no matter how ridiculous it is, as long as it's clean. This program's not for kids, but we don't need to say too many swear words. You know the deal, what we always ask you to do. Check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, and recruiting. We've been at it for 20 years now, something like that. We've been doing this for a really long time, and still going strong, and still, I think, providing the best Pitt sports coverage that you're going to find, and the best online community of Pitt fans at the Panther-Lair.com message boards. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. So go there, hang out with other Pitt fans, talk with other Pitt fans all day, every day on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Then, of course, what we ask you to do right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the big ask that we have during all these videos, whether it's the daily morning Pitt video, Monday through Friday. We release those things for you every morning to get your day started. So whether it's that or these live shows every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m., the next week we might not be live on Wednesday night. We might push it back to Thursday. We're doing it a day early on Tuesday. I'm not sure yet. Haven't decided. But we might not be live next week on Thursday. I think we're going to have to change, or on Wednesday. We're going to have to change that schedule up. I'll get you more details. I'll talk about it on the Morning Pit and Twitter and all those places. But you don't want to miss any of that. So next week is a perfect example. If we're not going to be live next week, maybe you forget that I say this. A week from now, you're thinking, oh, it's Wednesday night. Time for the live show. Well, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can turn on notifications. You'll get a notification sent right to your phone anytime we go live, anytime we post a new video, anytime we do anything at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, you will know about it. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on your notifications, and that way you won't miss anything we do right here. So next week, when we're not live on Wednesday night, it won't catch you by surprise. Or when we do go live on Tuesday or Thursday, whatever night it ends up being, it won't catch you by surprise. You'll be like, oh, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I knew we weren't. I knew the show was coming because I got the notification. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on those notifications. All right, lots going on here. Lots going on here as we head into the final official visit weekend. Obviously, tomorrow's Morning Pit is going to have some heavy coverage of the official visit weekend. Get you ready for that. The recruits will start arriving tomorrow. They'll be here tomorrow through Saturday. It's the way that Pitt coaches have done it this month, Thursday through Saturday. And that's what they're doing here again. And it's probably the most star-studded group that we've seen yet. We've got, as of right now, we've got 5 4-star prospects confirmed as visiting this weekend, which is more than we've seen out of any of the previous weekends. I mean, they've had some good visit weekends. I think the first 2 have been really good. And this last one with 5 4-star guys, I mean, this is right up there. Maybe more impressive than any of the weekends that we've seen so far. Always got to keep checking the phone with the alerts and notifications and text messages and DMs. You never know when more information about the about the official visits are coming in. Recruiting stuff is constantly flying around. So 5 4-star guys coming in this weekend. Offensive lineman Ryan Howerton. Wide receiver Zamarian Lang. Wide receiver Day Farmer, who's committed to Pitt already, but he's taken a couple other official visits this month, so he's going to be one that we have to keep an eye on. Defensive end Sincere Edwards and defensive end Malachi Williams. Those are the 5 4-star prospects. And then the rest of the visit weekend is sort of filled out with 3 commitments and a bunch of guys who are targets of varying, degrees of interest. You've got someone like DJ McCormick, the linebacker who's committed to UCF, who's coming in for a visit this weekend. And, you've got another offensive lineman, Marich Moranzer, affectionately known as Mo Schmo. The I guess, German expat, who lives in Virginia. He's coming in for his official visit. So you got a wide range of recruits coming in here. You've got some star-studded guys. You've got a handful of commitments to be around those star-studded guys and try and draw them into Pitt. And you've got a chance, I think, for a pretty big official visit weekend. You've got an opportunity here to land some of these 4-star guys. You really start with Day Farmer. I think the wide receiver who, like I say, is already committed to Pitt. He committed on Christmas Day. And even, really since then, it's been pretty clear that his commitment was kind of open. I think we sort of knew since then that he might look around. And sure enough, he took 2 official visits this month. Went to West Virginia and went to Central Florida. One of the priorities this weekend is going to be locking him down. You know what I mean? Closing down this recruitment. And I think the way you do it, you don't force him into it. You just force him to decide. I mean, not force. Force isn't even the right word. You don't demand that he reaffirm his commitment. You just demand that he makes a decision. Are you in or are you out? It's a road to Damascus moment, What's it going to be? In or out? If you're in, that's great. Love to have you as part of the class. If you're out, that's fine. Good luck to you. We just need to know if we need to recruit more wide receivers. I mean, they're already going to be recruiting other receivers. They've got a guy visiting this weekend in addition to Farmer, and they've got other targets on the board. But they need to know on whether they need to know whether they can count on Day Farmer or not. He's, a very good piece of this recruiting class. And they need to know if they're going to be able to hold on to him or not. They need to know if they can count on him taking up a space or if they're going to have to use that spot for another receiver. Certainly I think probably the most intriguing guy is Sincere Edwards, the former Central Florida commit, the guy who was a commit, for Central Florida up until about 3 o'clock today. So about 5.5 hours ago, he announced his decommitment. Sincere Edwards is a guy that we've talked about since spring camp. He came to Pitt on an unofficial visit in the spring. And I think since then, we've had him sort of penciled in or circled as a possible flip candidate. He's been a top priority target for Pitt. And, I think he's been someone that we've said, wow, that they should be able to flip him. He's a guy they should be able to flip off his commitment from Central Florida. He took an official visit to Central Florida earlier this month, still stood by the commitment, still had the commitment until yesterday. Tweeted, got a big announcement coming at 3 o'clock. And it was sort of like, what could the big announcement be? It seems like announcing a decommitment is pretty much the only big announcement that was really conceivable. Announcing that he was going to cancel the Pitt visit didn't make much sense. He had already reconfirmed that multiple times. And so it seemed like it had to be a decommitment. And sure enough, that's what it was. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just, what's the phrase? Clutching at straws here, grabbing straws, or whatever you want to call it. But he's been committed. He took an official visit to the school he was committed to. The day before he's about to go to an official visit to a school that he has raved about, he decommits. Now, when he decommitted, he announced the top 5. Pitt, Central Florida, Penn State, Maryland, and USF. Okay. I don't take that to mean he's going to use 3 more official visits in the fall. I really don't. My guess, and I mean, I'm not very good at predicting these things, and this isn't based on any kind of inside information or intel or anything like that, but my guess is he's going to commit on this visit. And it's good to have a top 5 out there, because you can say that he picked Pitt over Penn State, Maryland, Central Florida, and South Florida. But my guess is that Pitt will have Sincere Edwards in this class by the end of the weekend. My guess. We'll see. I'm not putting in a future cast or crystal ball or any of those things because I don't do that because I'm an adult. But my guess is that he will. I shouldn't say that I'm an adult. I mean that's just become part of the industry now to make those predictions. It's just never been something I could really get on board with or get into. But that's my guess. Elsewhere, Ryan Howerton, the offensive lineman, he's taking official visits to West Virginia and Maryland. I think Pitt makes 3. And I think those are probably his top 3 schools that he'll pick from. Zamarian Lane, the wide receiver from Florida, he's taken one other official visit this month. He may decide he wants to take more official visits, but it would not surprise me in the least if he says, okay, I'm going to pick now either Pitt or West Virginia. And then Malachi Williams, the defensive end from Florida, a 4-star guy, just kind of rounding out the 4-star prospects here. Kid from Florida took official visits to Syracuse and Penn State. This sort of looks like an in-state battle, unless both in-state schools say, no, we're full or we don't need you, and then he ends up going to Syracuse. But this looks like an in-state battle between Pitt and Penn State, and it may come down to which school pushes harder for him, quite frankly. Because I think both schools have DN targets and commits that they probably have rated a little higher than Williams. But those are the 5 4-star guys this weekend, and that's a good group. And it's a good group. It's a talented group. It's an impressive group, and it's a group that could very well produce, as many. If we count Farmer reaffirming his commitment. If we count that, you could get as many, I think conceivably like 3 of these guys could be on the commitment list by the end of the weekend. I think they will get Edwards. I think they can get Farmer to reconfirm, and I think they can get Lang or Howerton. Williams, I could see playing it out a little bit as he tries to get a feel for who's pushing for him, Pitt or Penn State. But I mean, I think, Edwards, Farmer, and either Lang or Howerton will be a heck of a haul from this weekend to add. I mean, they'd be adding 2 4-stars to the group and reaffirming 1 4-star for the class. But that would be a heck of a grab. I mean, if they could pull all those guys in, it'd be a really nice addition to the class. And they would start filling out some of these position groups where, we've talked for the last week or so that they haven't really filled any position groups yet, that they still have room left to take other guys at a bunch of positions. But they could start filling, I think, getting close to their cap on a bunch of positions, maybe DN, maybe offensive line. Linebacker could be coming close, depending on how a couple things sort of shake out between now and Saturday. So we could start seeing some of those positions fill up, and if they fill up with some of these 4-star guys, that's not too shabby. So it should be an exciting weekend. Should be a lot to follow and cover on Panther-Lair.com, so make sure you stay tuned to the website, Panther-Lair.com. Now, we got a lot of comments already in the live stream. I always love to see it. See a lot of familiar names, familiar faces, and one is Roman's been around since the beginning of these live streams. And Roman says, hey, Chris, long time no see. I'm curious to get your thoughts on Pitt's quarterback recruiting now that Henry Hasselbeck has gotten several crystal balls to Michigan State. Where does Pitt go from here? Trevor Jackson or bust? Yeah, so this is a situation that this is a situation with the quarterback spot that we're trying to get a real handle on. And I'm probably going to write more about this on Panther-Lair.com. I'm going to say in the morning. I don't want to get your hopes up and tell you I'm going to write it tonight because I'm still trying to gather facts, right? Gathering facts. That's what we're trying to do. Gather information, gather evidence and intel and that kind of thing. We've got some solid intel on some things, but we're still trying to piece together a few other items. Yeah, there does seem to be momentum with Henry Hasselbeck and Michigan State. If you don't know the quarterback situation for Pitt, right, there were at one point there were 5 main targets. Like a month and a half ago, there were 5 main targets. Even maybe a month ago, 5 main targets. Let's call it 6 weeks. 5 main targets. Tyler Cherry, well, he's committed to Duke now. Drew Devilier, who I think committed to Rice. He was committed to TCU as a baseball player. Pitt kind of stopped recruiting him or blew him off. Now I saw he committed to Rice or one of those schools for football. Miles O'Neill, a kid from New England who was going to a prep school, the Hun School in New Jersey. He committed to Texas A&M. So that left two guys, Henry Hasselbeck, Matt Hasselbeck's kid from New England, and Trevor Jackson, quarterback from Florida who works with Rod Rutherford, actually. They're both good prospects. Jackson's probably the better passer, probably the better athlete by a little bit, but Hasselbeck is a really good athlete, a lacrosse player who's committed to play at Maryland, which if you're committing to play lacrosse at Maryland, you're no slouch. So they're both good prospects in their own ways. And it seemed like Pitt was going to get one of those guys. I mean, I think that was the safe bet, the smart money has been on Pitt getting either Hasselbeck or Jackson for quite some time. I mean, that's been sort of our expectation, our assumption. But now in the last 24 hours, 12 hours, somewhere around there, the momentum seems to be building heavily for Michigan State with Henry Hasselbeck. And this is after we felt like Pitt was the favorite. I think there was a strong feeling that Pitt was the favorite to land Hasselbeck. And actually probably the favorite for both guys. Not that they were going to take both guys, but I think the favorite for both guys, Hasselbeck and Jackson. So it was just a question of which one they would get or which one they would take or which one they would push for. Well, Michigan State's starting to get momentum for Henry Hasselbeck. Yeah, that does put a lot of pressure on Pitt getting Trevor Jackson. Now, Hasselbeck has been scheduled to take his official visit this weekend, arrive at Pitt tomorrow. He confirmed that on Monday. He confirmed it with us on Monday that was his plan, to take an official visit this weekend. He confirmed with our Michigan State rival site yesterday that he was still set to take the official visit to Pitt this weekend. So we're keeping that one penciled in. But if the momentum continues to move in Michigan State's favor, we'll see what happens with that visit. Either way, as long as this remains the situation that Michigan State looks like the favorite for Hasselbeck, then the momentum, then the pressure is going to be on Pitt to land Trevor Jackson. Now, Trevor Jackson, I think, is a gettable prospect. He's taken one other official visit this month. It was to Texas A&M. They now have two quarterbacks, including former Pitt target Miles O'Neill. So they would seem to be off the board. He had an official visit scheduled to Missouri for this weekend, but he canceled that. I thought he was canceling that so he could take an official visit to Miami, who seemed to offer him earlier this month, but now doesn't seem like that offer really happened. Miami's got another quarterback commitment already, so it would be, going to be the number 2 quarterback or the second quarterback in the class. So I think there are a lot of things that favor Pitt with Trevor Jackson. He was just out at the Elite 11 finals in California, seemingly did well there. I think he's gotten some interest from some schools out of that, but I think he really liked his Pitt visit. I think he saw everything he wanted to see on his Pitt official visit and came away really impressed with the Panthers and wants to, I think he feels good about Pitt, and I think Pitt feels good about him. It's just a matter of getting it wrapped up. I think this could be a situation where you see Pitt get a commitment from Trevor Jackson at some point in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, maybe later. But you always kind of watch out for whether or not Miami decides to make a real run at him, either because they lose the quarterback they have committed or just because they decide they want a second one and they feel like they can get him. That's always going to be a threat that's out there. And so you're going to have to live with that. But yeah, to your question, it does feel like it's Jackson or bust at this point. And, unless they're able to get Henry Hasselbeck here and just make a massive swing in his opinion of the program based on what he sees and what he experiences. Let's see here. Josh Newark says, can you discuss the lack of recruiting news of Pete Gonzalez's kid in regards to Pitt? Is he definitely a no-go for the Panthers? Yeah, Peter Gonzalez, wide receiver prospect at Central Catholic, son of former Pitt quarterback Pete Gonzalez. He had an offer from Pitt, and it just didn't seem like there was any interest. To be quite honest, it seemed like both sides sort of faded. I don't remember if he was even at any of Pitt's spring practices this year. To be honest, I don't really remember seeing him there. He might have been, and I forgot, but I don't really remember seeing it. Didn't take an official visit to Pitt this month, and announced the top 3 a week or 2 weeks ago, something like that, announced the top 3 of Penn State, Virginia Tech, and Miami. It's just not happening. I mean, there's just nothing there. And I'm not sure the exact reason why, but this is just a case. And every now and then there's a local kid, and it's particularly unfortunate when it's a local kid with ties to the school like Pete Gonzalez has. But every now and then there's a local kid that there's just nothing doing. And so there's probably more to the story than that. I don't have a whole lot of insight on it. But yeah, he was interested when they offered, and then it just seemed to fade real fast, and his interests and focus were elsewhere. Let's see. Brock Madonic says, any guys you feel good about this weekend to commit as you did with Montero? We felt really confident about Cameron Montero committing. Like I say, I think Sincere Edwards is a high probability. I would keep an eye on DJ McCormick. Did we talk about him or not? He's a linebacker. He committed to Central Florida, and when did he commit to Central Florida? On June 11th, so about 10 days ago. And when he committed to Central Florida, he said he was canceling all of his official visits. Well, we assumed that meant he was canceling all of his official visits. It turns out this week, it doesn't mean he's canceled all of his official visits. It means he canceled all of his official visits except for Pitt, and he'll be here tomorrow. Now, there will be a question about how many linebackers they want to take in this class. If they want to push for like 4, which they took 3 last year, but I could see them taking another big class. I thought 3 might be the number, but maybe 4. If they want to push for 4, I could see McCormick making that move. He has raved about Pitt in the past. He's very high on the Panthers. And again, canceled all of his official visits after he committed, except Pitt. And now he's coming in for a visit. It's not. Today wasn't a good day for Central Florida fans. Sincere Edwards decommitted. The McCormick news came out that he's sticking with his official visit to Pitt. I feel like they lost another commitment or something today, or had somebody else. One of their commits announced he was taking other official visits or something. It was a rough day for Central Florida fans. Today was not a national championship day for Central Florida. So he would be one that I would keep an eye on. Somebody else asked, there was another question. Adam Vinchik, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, Vinchik. But Adam says, your guess on number of commitments. I mean, when I look down this list, like I say, I think there's a possibility probably for at least 2 new commitments. And I've undershot it every time on the past 2 official visit weekends. I've been off by like 2 or 3. I've been under the number by 2 or 3. So if I'm going to guess 2, then there might be as many as 4, which would push this class pretty much to its bursting point. Of course, there were always going to be some decommitments, and we'll probably talk about that on the message board soon. But like I say, I think there's a pretty good chance of getting at least 2, which means that they might end up with 4 or 5. Let's see here. TRR says, looking like Sincere Edwards can be a Panther decommitted from UCF today. Yeah, he's definitely a guy we have an eye on. He's a guy we had an eye on, as far back as the spring when he took his unofficial visit. And I think coming into this official visit weekend, we had him as a guy to watch. That we thought this decommitment could be coming during or after his official visit, or maybe in conjunction with a Pitt commitment. Here he ended up decommitting the day before he even came on the official visit. So it's pretty, the timing certainly makes you, it certainly opens your eyes, doesn't it? Paul Sham says, is Jeremiah Marcelin still announcing today? Jeremiah Marcelin, he's a linebacker prospect. I just want to bring up his profile to get all the details right. I should have that committed to memory by now. But Jeremiah Marcelin, a 3-star linebacker prospect, a high 3-star linebacker prospect from Miami Norland High School in Florida. Top 40 outside linebacker prospect in the country, 25 offers. He took an unofficial visit in April, I believe, and spoke really highly of Pitt at that point. He is announcing his commitment tomorrow. He's announcing his commitment on the 22nd. So you'll keep an eye out for that. I want to say it's in the afternoon, but we'll be watching for that. We'd like Pitt's chances there. And like I say, we'll be keeping an eye out for Jeremiah Marcelin's announcement. That'll be tomorrow, like I say. All right, next question. There was something. Nico P says, do you think Kirks or Edwards are both takes? Yeah, so I think Sincere Edwards definitely. Dominic Kirks is another defensive end. He took his official visit. Get back to the page now. The first weekend. He's a 4-star guy, a 4-star defensive end from Cleveland. He took his official visit the first weekend of June. He has since taken official visits to Wisconsin and Washington. He announced a top 5 in mid-June of Pitt, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Washington, and Kentucky. And he announced just about an hour ago that he's going to be committing on June 30th. So next Friday, I guess it is. That's what we all want to be doing on our Friday nights, is watching recruiting news. With 3 official visits taken, I'm not sure if he has anything scheduled for this weekend that he's planning on doing. It looks like it might come down to Pitt, Wisconsin, and Washington. Look, I think if they could get Kirks and Edwards, yeah, I think they would take them both. I think Edwards, at his size and kind of ability and his skill set, looks like he could be potentially one of these guys who moves inside from defensive end to defensive tackle. And I think that versatility allows the coaches to have the flexibility to take more guys, to take a Kirks and an Edwards if both want to commit. I think it's hard to turn down talented players like that, players of that caliber, particularly when you need to reload. You've got a bigger class with which to do it. You're going to take more guys in this class, so you've got an opportunity to fill up and load up at a few positions, particularly if you can get talented players. We're seeing them do that with defensive backs, and we can see them do that with defensive line. I think those are 2 positions of emphasis here, in addition to basically every position. I mean, they're looking to load up with linebackers. They're looking to load up with offensive linemen. I think they're looking to load up with wide receivers. I mean, it's all across the board. Other than quarterback and seemingly tight end, it just continues to be a problem. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Nico P, yeah, I think they could take both guys, and I think they would take both guys. Swim Boyd says, if you could pick any team for Pitt to face in a bowl game, who would you like? Oh, I lost your question. I mean, I know what the point was, but I just want to get the wording down. Who would you like to see? I mean, the obvious answer is always like Penn State or West Virginia. Well, not West Virginia because they're playing them now, but I mean, Penn State, right? I guess. Okay, Penn State is the obvious answer because you always want to see a Pitt-Penn State game. I mean, it rarely fails to deliver. But I'll say this. It was cool to see Pitt play UCLA last year. Michigan State, to some extent, they feel a little more familiar. I guess I would want Pitt to play, if I could pick any team for them to face in a bowl game, I would want them to play obviously a Power 5 program. I would want them to play a prominent Power 5 program, one of these name brand, name recognition, high-value brands in college football, and someone that is, they don't see very often or haven't seen in a long time. It'd be fun to watch Pitt play. I mean, never mind like the results, but just for the factor of seeing Pitt play a team that they don't see very often, it'd be fun to watch Pitt play Ohio State, or Michigan, Alabama, Texas. That would be interesting. USC, and not because of bad blood with USC, but just Florida. I think it would be fun to watch Pitt play against those teams. And I mean, like, ultimately, if Pitt is in a position to face Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan in a bowl game in the next couple of years, chances are it's going to be a college football playoff game. So Pitt presumably would be pretty good to have played itself into that position. So it might actually be, you have a chance of a competitive game and a game they could win. So I think there'd be a lot of upside to that. It'd be a lot of fun to watch and a potential for a pretty big victory that When you beat a team like those teams that I just mentioned, that counts for something. It counts for a little something extra. I think he gets a little bit more attention from people, sit up and take notice. So, maybe even more than like a Penn State. I'd like to see them play Alabama. I'd like to see them play Ohio State. I'd like to see them play Texas. Some of those real name brand programs in the sport. I don't know. I'm curious about your answers. You guys, what do you guys say? You can drop some answers in there too. I'd be curious to hear who jumps out to you. I mean, like there's the obvious appeal of the rivalry game with like a Penn State, West Virginia. They're playing, in the 4-game series here, so that wouldn't be quite as unique and quite as interesting. And Notre Dame they see often enough that I wouldn't want Notre Dame in a bowl game. But some of those others, Michigan. How about a Pitt-Michigan game? I think that'd be fun, or Pitt-Ohio State, just so you have contrasting colors, or Pitt-Alabama, so you have contrasting colors. Maybe Pitt-Michigan, they're very different colors, but it's too much blue and yellow and white, Mix it up a little bit. Speaking of mix it up a little bit, I got to tell you about our friend Chris Gates. Of course, the Wednesday live show. It's sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is an online fitness coach from Pittsburgh, and he works with people all over the world to chase their fitness goals. Whether it's building muscle, burning fat, or creating healthy lifestyle habits, Chris can help. Now, Pitt Training Camp is 6 weeks away. And as training camp approaches, Chris is preparing his own online fitness coaching training camp for this August as well. This is going to be an opportunity for you to get in on a personalized exercise plan and nutrition plan and get to work to build the right habits with your health and fitness. Chris will be there to guide you and support you every step of the way. Now, a bunch of listeners jumped into Chris's training camp at the beginning of last season and saw amazing results. And this year, Chris is going to be launching brand new challenges throughout the program to help you build healthy habits and create lasting progress. So stay tuned to the Panther-Lair podcast right here for more details in the weeks to come as Chris gets ready to open his training camp training program. And as always, Chris is going to offer a huge discount to Panther-Lair podcast listeners. So in the meantime, make sure you're on Chris's mailing list so you can get the details the minute his training camp opens up. He's also got brand new content on the way, an article that breaks down quite literally everything you need to know about protein, and a new podcast episode on some of his most unpopular fitness opinions. Those are always fun when people give their hot takes and unpopular opinions. If you're on Chris's mailing list, you'll get all the new content delivered to your inbox the minute it's released. So go to chrisgatesfitness.com to learn more, to sign up for the mailing list and get ready to sign up for his special Chris Gates training camp. chrisgatesfitness.com. Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Gates, G-A-T-E-S, fitness.com. Thanks to Chris for supporting the podcast, as always. You guys should go support him, because he's a Pitt fan. He's doing good stuff helping other Pitt fans. And like I say, he supports us right here. All right, let's get back into comments and questions. Matthew Lease says, it looks like a big 8 days with Marcelin, Beasley, and Kirks announcing, plus the official visit weekend. How am I feeling about Kirks? Yeah, just talked about him for a second there. Dominic Kirks, 4-star guy, has a top, what did I say it was, top 5? Bring up his Twitter page again, a top 5, right, of Washington, Kentucky, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Pitt. But he took 3 official visits this month. And like I say, I don't know if he's going anywhere this weekend. But he's got these official visits. He's got Pitt, Wisconsin, and Washington this month. I'm just looking real quick to see if he's got any... Let's see if he has anything. I'm trying to do a quick scan of his social media and the articles and things like that to see if he's got any official visits scheduled for this weekend. And I don't really see anything. So you would think that it's going to come down to those 3, Pitt, Wisconsin, and Washington, with his commitment scheduled for, like you say, next Friday night. How do I feel about Pitt's chances? I mean, I think Pitt has done a good job with him. They were his first Power 5 offer. He's got a good connection with Archie Collins. And look, I like Pitt's chances with just about any defensive line prospect. You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking about Charlie Partridge, a guy who regularly, annually is considered one of the best defensive line coaches in the game, you got to think that gives you a good shot with just about anybody on the defensive line. And I think that's the case with Dominic Kirks. And he's a little unique from their other defensive line commitments and even some of their targets with his size and explosiveness. I think he'd be a good addition. So I don't have a real strong feel about where he's leaning. But it definitely, I mean, Pitt is definitely a major player here, for sure. See, Byron Flex says, wondering if you might be covering Sam Clancy Day and the renaming his street in his honor on June 24th. You know, I wasn't able to get to the proclamation today. First of all, it's a great honor for Sam Clancy. Sam Clancy having a street named in his honor. June 24th, named Sam Clancy Day. A street in the Hills District, a corner is going to have a street sign put up honoring Sam Clancy. I mean, you talk about a homegrown athlete, one of the best athletes to come out of the city of Pittsburgh, certainly the University of Pittsburgh, a guy who grew up, where did he go, like Fifth Avenue High School, is that what it was? And then Brashear. And I mean, a guy, when we talk about basketball in the city of Pittsburgh, a guy whose name should be one of the first ones, you know, off your lips. Constant, you know, he really is one of the greats in this city and one of the greats in this university. He's gone on to be a great representative of the university for years and years. He was with the football program for a little while and then moved into the administrative side of the athletic department, and he's done an incredible job there. And he's been around for, I mean, I can remember him being, he wasn't an assistant coach on the football program in like 2006, 2007. He was I forget what they called it, special assistant or something, or volunteer assistant. He might have been a volunteer assistant helping Greg Gattuso with the defensive line. I can remember him being around then, and then he moved into that administrative role, and he's just a great representative of the university, of the athletic department, you know, and he's a guy who is proudly Pitt. You know, I mean, we always hear these phrases like proud Pitt man and forever Panther. I mean, that's what Sam Clancy is. And he deserves every bit of recognition he gets from the university and every bit of recognition he gets from the city because he's a great representative of it, for sure. So, yeah, kudos to Sam Clancy. I'm going to try to make it down there on Saturday. I'm not entirely sure if we'll make it, but we will give our best. Frank P, I don't want to mess up your last name, Pacharoni, I'm going to say, says, what do you think is Pitt's biggest recruiting pitch? What is their biggest selling point versus other schools? This is a great question, Frank. That's a great question. I love how you asked that, and I love the point of the question because I think it's an interesting conversation, and it's something that you can really, I think, dig into because there's a lot to talk about when you talk about how you sell Pitt or how the Pitt coaches sell Pitt. And so I think it's a really fascinating question on that front. The first thing you have to understand is each recruit is different. All right. Most of them have overlapping interests, but each kid is a little bit different, and your approach with each kid is going to have to be a little bit different. You're going to have to sell different things with each kid, and just come at it a little bit differently. On the whole, though, I come back to a quote that I got from Gabriel Williams, 4-star linebacker. He ended up actually committing to Virginia Tech, so maybe this is a terrible quote to cite. But it really stuck with me because I think it is a big part of the recruiting pitch, particularly right now. And I think this is a great way for Narduzzi and his staff to go about it, and I think it's a great point to emphasize. All right, and it came down to this. They told Gabe Williams, and it really stuck with him. They said to him, and Narduzzi said this to him during their little sit-down at the end of the visit. He said, like, all the things you want to do, all the things you want to accomplish, all the things you want to have as part of your experience in college football, you can do and have and experience right here. You can accomplish all of those things right here at Pitt. And you can do it literally feet away, inches away from the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the great franchises in NFL history, with some of the best players in the league. And they're standing right there next to you all day, every day. You're going to be rubbing elbows with them. You are sharing their facility. You're working out in the same facility they work out in. Your weight room's right next to them. You use the same indoor facility. You share some of the outside practice fields. You are right next to them. And on top of that, you are living in Oakland. This place that is, and you could go on and on about the campus life, and you could talk about. I think I did this a couple of weeks ago. I talked about why Pitt was recruiting so well, or why they had so much recruiting momentum, and I talked about the sales pitch. That's what it comes down to. Okay, what they can sell right now, if you're Pitt, what you can sell, and I think what they have been selling, is the success you've had on the field recently. 20 wins over the last 2 years, ACC championship, Biletnikoff Award, Heisman Trophy finalist, all the things they've done over the last 2 years, Sun Bowl win, UCLA, all those things, right? You can sell those things. You've got all these NFL draft picks now. You've got first-round draft picks in back-to-back years. And really, you've got 3 in the last 2 years. Because you absolutely can be selling Jordan Addison. And you absolutely should be selling Jordan Addison. You say, look, Jordan Addison, yeah, he transferred. He left. He went to USC. What did he do at USC? We found him. We recruited him. We gave him a chance. We coached him up. We developed him. We got him into the Biletnikoff Award. We helped him become a first-round draft pick. And we're claiming him. And they should claim him. They should. He spent 2/3 of his career at Pitt. He was recruited by Pitt. He was coached by Pitt. He was developed by Pitt. His best season happened at Pitt. Pitt should absolutely claim Jordan Addison as a first-round draft pick. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the media guide's going to look like when it comes out. They should claim him. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, but they should. But I digress. You can sell all the draft picks of the last 2 years. You can sell the first-round draft picks of the last 2 years. You can sell the success that pick guys who came out of these coaches. You don't even need to talk. I mean, you still talk about Aaron Donald and Larry Fitzgerald and LaShawn McCoy. You always talk about those guys. But you don't even need to sell it on those guys. You can just talk about that as the history of Pitt. You can talk about your more recent history of DeMar Hamlin and Dane Jackson and Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones getting drafted, and Jordan Whitehead and Kenny Pickett and Kalijah Cansey and Damari Mathis. You can go down the list of all these guys who have played at Pitt, all these guys who are excelling in the NFL, all these guys who have been drafted in the last few years, and say, look, you can do all of those things right here. You can win an ACC championship right here. You can play in a New Year's Six Bowl right here. You can be a first-round draft pick and a Heisman Trophy finalist and a Biletnikoff Award winner. You can do all of those things right here. And you can do them next door to the Steelers and in this beautiful urban campus setting. That's the sales pitch. That's what sets it apart. You lean into it. I've often said this too. Attendance. Yeah. If a recruit brings it up, if a family member brings it up, says, Coach, wow, you just don't draw a lot of people to your games. You say, you know what? Yeah, 50,000. That's not 107,000. That's not 110,000. And you know what? Our stadium doesn't even have enough seats. We could never get 110,000 people into this stadium for a game. It's true. And so for those 6 or 7 Saturdays, you're going to play in front of 50,000, not 100,000. But you have another 358 days in the year where you have to live in the place where you're going to college, where you have to go to classes. You have to live in those dorms or live in those apartments. You have to walk around these areas. You have to eat in these restaurants. You have to visit these museums or other cultural nightlife. You don't just live your whole life in front of 107,000 fans. You live half the day for 7 out of 365 days in front of 107,000 fans. The other 358 plus all those half days that you're not actually playing in the game, those you actually have to live your life. So you can do all these things. You can be next to the Steelers, and you can be in this great urban campus setting where you can actually live the life you want to live. And all you have to do is sacrifice playing in front of 50,000 people instead of 107,000. That's the sales pitch. And I mean, I'm not like some marketing genius. Nobody from Pitt is watching this and saying, oh my God, that's a great idea. Why didn't we think about that? I mean, this is what they're selling to guys. I'm paraphrasing it and trying to say it as eloquently as I can, but that's the sales pitch. And I think that's what's resonating with a lot of recruits. Let's see. Anthony Tennyson says, Chris, I think Pitt will end up with another 2 or 3 4-star recruits. Yeah, I think they have a good shot. Tony, I think you're right. I could see them getting 2 out of this weekend, and possibly adding another 1 or 2 to the commitment list once a few of the unannounced commitments end up making their announcements. So, yeah, I think this commitment list will keep growing. I think they'll I think the commitment list will keep growing, and I think it could get more star-studded than it already is. Sorry, sometimes I look ahead at some comments and questions. And, I need to just focus on the one I'm on. Josh Newark says, your morning pit this morning was depressing and uplifting. Depressing at how bad Slovis was, but also really indicative of how good the team actually was to overcome such poor play. Yeah. This is a bit of the concern about this year, right? So, quarterback play was not good last year. We all agree about that. Cost them a couple games, and they had wins that weren't really derived from the play at quarterback. They had losses you can put on the quarterback, but not really many, if any, wins you could put on the quarterback play, I would say. But they were able to win 9 games because they had an outstanding running back who was one of the best running backs in the country, and they had a great defense. Coming into this year, they don't have that running back and they don't have that defense. The defense may eventually get there, and I actually think it will. I think it'll be a good defense. It's just a question of how long it'll take for that group to kind of come together and, kind of grow together and be good. And we'll see what happens with the running back. But I think there's going to be more needed from the quarterback this year than there was last year, because you don't have Izzy Abanikanda and you don't have that defense. And look, Rodney Hammond might be awesome. Sebo Flemister might be awesome. Derek Davis might be awesome. The 2 freshmen might be awesome. They might be. I don't know. I don't know if they're Izzy Abanikanda. And I can't sit here and count on them being Izzy Abanikanda. I can't sit here and say, well, Phil Dracovic doesn't need to be all that good because they're going to have Rodney Hammond and they're going to have Sebo Flemister. I don't know. I think those guys can be good, but I have no indication that they can actually be as good as Abanikanda was last year, which means there's going to be more pressure on Dracovic to make plays. And he's doing it with fewer receivers than he had last year. Last year he had Konate Mumfield and Bub Means and Jared Wayne. This year he doesn't have Wayne. He's got Dejon Reynolds coming in as a transfer from Florida, but he has limited experience and limited production in college. So you're kind of looking at needing more from the quarterback and having less around him, in addition to a defense that's rebuilding a bit this year. The coaches might not go for that. They might say that's an excuse and they don't want to hear any excuses, but it's a reality. You're replacing 6 starters. You're rebuilding to some extent. So I think even more is going to be demanded of the quarterback. Phil Dracovic's going to need to play at an even higher level than look, they need, if everything else came back other than Keaton Slovis, Phil Dracovic would need to play at a higher level to get Pitt to where it needed to go. But now he's going to need to play at an even higher level than that because they don't have all of those other pieces back. And that to me is a concern when I don't really know what to expect from Dracovic in the first place. So there's a lot of question marks. I think there's a lot of question marks about this team, and questions that I don't think are automatically going to be answered in the negative, but it's questions all the same. Uncertainty. Ryan asked for a prediction. Trevor Jackson will put on a blank helmet in 2024. Trevor Jackson will put on a football helmet in 2024. Next question. I don't know. It's hard to predict right now. Even if he committed tomorrow, I would say, I guess Pitt has a 51% chance. There's always going to be the possibility of decommitment from all commits. We should know that by now. We should be desensitized enough to it that, we understand decommitments are always a possibility. Quarterbacks, I think, are particularly susceptible because teams will double back when they are in desperate need of a quarterback. See also Notre Dame last year. Notre Dame struck out, and they doubled back and went after Kenny Minchey. And there's nothing you can do to prevent that. There's nothing you can do to protect against that. You can only hope that the kid decides to hold on to his commitment. That's the best you can do. And that's going to be the case. Quite frankly, it's the case for every school. Honestly, like Texas, maybe not Texas, maybe not Ohio State, maybe not Alabama. Every other school. is, vulnerable in this situation when it comes to quarterback commitments. You could always lose that guy. So I have no idea. I guess I would put a 51% chance on Pitt, but boy, howdy, there's a lot that can happen between now and mid-December when signing day comes. Josh Newark says, does the Notre Dame AD retiring have any effect on conference realignment? I don't know. I could see at a lot of places where hiring a new AD or a new chancellor or a new president or whatever it is, I could see where that sends things in a different direction. That maybe something they've long held to, like a stadium or a uniform combo or something like that, or long held principles where, those are sort of cast aside by new leadership. I don't know if Notre Dame is exactly that. Notre Dame, those principles, those long-held principles and values may be so deeply entrenched that new leadership can't really and might not really even want to find a way to, drop them and do something different. So I'm not sure. I feel like Notre Dame might continue to be the exception in the way it approaches basically the whole operation of sports. Brock Madonic says, could you see Pitt going all in on Nick Marsh with the NIL, similar to what West Virginia did with Rodney Gallagher? Nick Marsh, 4-star wide receiver, visited Pitt earlier in June. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pitt's out of it. He announced a top group. I know Pitt and Penn State were in it because I think those are the two schools that it's going to come down to for him. I could see Pitt trying to be very aggressive, or parties on Pitt's behalf being very aggressive in trying to land him and bring him into the recruiting class, and that would be a big score for sure. Josh Newark, let's see it. My computer skipped up there. Josh Newark says, if I am Pitt, I am amplifying the athletic story today, reevaluating the 2019 recruiting class and placing Pitt at number 9 overall. Really speaks volumes to the coach's development of players. Will also had a comment right at the same time, says the Athletic recently retroactively ranked Pitt's 2019 recruiting class at number 9 nationally. Who do you see in this class that could contribute to a similar ranking in 4 years? I'm not sure about the second part of your question, Will, but as far as the Athletic re-ranking the 2019 recruiting class, I mean, yeah, with guys like Kalijah Cansey, Brandon Hill, Jared Wayne, Servassier Dennis, Mac Salves, I mean, that was ended up being a class that was really good and contributed a whole lot to the ACC championship, which I think was a big part of what the Athletic was driving at. That class had a lot to do with Pitt's success, particularly 2 years later in 2021 when they won the ACC. I actually think that when they re-rank Pitt's 2020 class next year, it seems like the Athletic does this every year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another top 10 re-ranking and maybe even higher with like Jordan Addison, Izzy Abanikanda, Bengali Kamara, Solomon DeShields, Deion Hayes, Ben Sauls. It's a smaller class and a bunch of it is washed out, but it's got some real superstar power at the top. And if Kamara and DeShields have the years I expect them to have this year, I think when they re-rank the 2020 recruiting classes, that class will be a top 10 group again and possibly even be ranked better than 9. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's got a chance because that class, I mean, that's huge. It's Biletnikoff Award winner, ACC Offensive Player of the Year, and Izzy. I mean, or I guess he wasn't the ACC. I forget what awards he won, but one of the best offensive players, one of the best running backs in the country. In that class, and like I say, if Kamara and DeShields live up to what I expect from them this season, then I think it'll look even better by the time they do these rankings next year. That actually reminded me, we do this every summer. We go back and re-rank some of Pitt's recruiting classes. So I think this year we tried to do the classes of guy like the top. We tried to do the recruiting classes that involve the guys who either just graduated, the guys who will be juniors, or the guys who will be seniors this year. So kind of like three different classes. So that would be like, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So this year we'll probably do the recruiting class 2018, 2019, and 2020. 20, 21, 22. Yeah, probably 18, 19, 20, maybe 21. I don't know. We'll have to take a look at the 2021 recruiting class and re-rank it. But it's always fun to do. It's always interesting to see whether the top-ranked guy in the class ended up having the top-ranked career, would probably be the best way to say that. It's usually not the case. I mean, like 2017, Paris Ford was the top-ranked guy in Pitt's recruiting class, and I mean, pretty clearly, I think that honor goes to Kenny Pickett. I think we know he's the number one. So, but those are always interesting to do. So the athletic thing is interesting, re-ranking recruiting classes across the country. I think Pitt fans will enjoy when we do it. We'll probably do it in July. Re-rank some of those recruiting classes based on how their careers ended up being. That's always interesting to look back, and a little bit of a trip down memory lane, some names you might have forgotten about. Will Z says, "Hey Chris, glad to join in on the final official visit week preview episode. Just wanted a prediction of who you think the breakout freshman is going to be this year." The breakout freshman this year. Hold on. Let me bring up the commitment list so I don't forget anyone. Breakout freshman. The 2023 recruiting class. I mean, I guess it speaks to Pitt's depth that there's no one name that jumps out. And I say, yeah, definitely that guy. I mean, probably a wide receiver. Probably like Kenny Johnson. I would guess. Maybe one of, Lamar Seymour or Lamar Seymour or Izzy Polk, who enrolled early. Maybe one of those guys. I think a receiver is going to have the clearest path to the field. Isaiah Neal is awesome. 4-star defensive tackle, but it's too bad he's not a defensive end because there's more opportunity to get in at defensive end. Whereas at tackle, they've got Devin Danielson, Tyler Bentley, David Green, and they've got a few other upperclassmen in there as well. Now, maybe Isaiah Neal is just good enough to force his way in, and that's entirely possible. But with those three super seniors, plus Sean Fitzsimmons, plus Elliott Donald, plus DeAndre Jules, there's a lot of guys in the middle there. And if you're good, you're good. And if you're good enough to help the team win, you'll play. And so I'm not going to rule out Isaiah Neal seeing the field. He might be talented enough to do it. But I just think it's going to be tough to fight his way through all of that. That's a crowded room right now. A year from now, look out. Because I think Isaiah Neal is going to dominate. But I just don't know if it's going to happen this year. So probably one of the wide receivers. They're going to need a freshman receiver to play. Just don't know. I'm not sure which one it is. I think Kenny Johnson might be the best of the group. It's just unfortunate he wasn't able to be at Pitt this spring to take part in spring camp and get sort of that leg up. Let's see if we can get one or two more questions in here before we run out of time. Oh, following up on the question of who would you like to see Pitt play in a bowl game? Nico P says, I'd love to see Pitt versus USC. Josh Newark says this year Pitt versus BYU is the correct answer just to get a month of Marquez Williams tweeting about Keaton Slovis. Let's see. Will says would be cool to play the Sooners in a bowl game. A blue blood that's very beatable. Haven't played against them in forever, and we haven't been too hot against them historically. Yeah, I agree about that. Those are all good options. See if there's anything else to jump in here. Frank Pacharoni says I nailed his last name. So good, Frank. I appreciate that. I always struggle with that sometimes, you guys. I don't want to mess up your names when you are in the chat. I mean, you're nice enough to watch the video and participate in the live stream and share your comments and questions. I don't want to mess up your last name. That's a terrible way to say thanks for participating. So glad I got that right. Glad everybody, not everybody has an easy name like Josh Newark or Will Z, Sometimes they're a little bit more complicated than others. But, all right, I think that about does it for tonight. We made it through a night without Jim Hammett. It was like the old times. It was like the old days of the live stream, doing it without Jimbo on the screen. But I hope he's having a good vacation. I hope he's not watching this video. I hope he's actually enjoying his vacation. But I'm sure he'll be back next week. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Like I said, we'll probably do this next week on Thursday. I'm not going to be available on Wednesday night. So we won't do it next Wednesday night. We'll either do it on Tuesday or Thursday. We'll figure out a day, and I'll definitely let you know on Twitter and on the Morning Pit. Speaking of the Morning Pit, keep an eye out tomorrow morning for the official visit preview episode of the Morning Pit. We will have that for you. And, of course, the Morning Pit mailbag on Friday, which is always fun. Always look forward to doing those. So thanks for watching the live stream tonight. Thanks for participating in the chat. We appreciate that. And, yeah, thanks for watching all of our stuff here. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then head over to Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com for all of your Pit sports news. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. We appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of the week. And we will talk to you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.